Over the summer, Lynn and I went on some local day hikes, noticing the bird songs or the quiet, noticing the wildflowers or absence of them, appreciating the flowing water, not so much the mud or bugs. We noticed how much the hike had changed since the last time we were there, or how similar our memory had retained the trail. Now, there are some humans who have total recall in memory, but most of us do not. In fact, we're often just distracted, trying to do too many things at once. And at the end of the day, we may have a hard time even recalling what we did or where we put our keys or what we had for dinner the night before. And sometimes it's not distraction, but rather that we don't want to share part of who we are. And so we keep parts of ourselves hidden. Parker Palmer, in his book A Hidden Wholeness, one of the texts of the Wellspring class that starts this fall, calls it a divided life. Palmer writes of the many ways we hide parts of us. Sometimes we mask our feelings. We armor up against the judgment from others or ourselves. We give in to fear and or peer pressure. We start to see the incongruity, but don't know how to become more whole or even if it's worth it, considering what we fear we are up against in the world. It is risky to live an integrated life, so that who we are on the inside is who we show the world on the outside. One of the books I read this summer was Dear Evan Hansen, which many of you may know from the musical or the film. Without too many spoilers, if you don't know the story, Evan is a high school student who has a lot of social anxiety and quite strained relationships with his divorced parents. He lives with his mom, who is a nurse, who works a lot. His dad has removed and has married and has moved to another part of the country and is expecting a new baby. Without revealing all of the details, what I really appreciated about the way this book reads is that Evan is the narrator through much of it. And his mind is constantly chattering away in that land of anxiety, often undermining his heart's yearnings. He desperately wants to connect with people, but is terrified. He's terrified of letting them down. He's terrified of setting boundaries. He's terrified of being rejected. He's terrified of hurting others. If he tells the truth, he's terrified of being known, while also desperately wanting to be. Reading the constant mind chatter invited me to notice my own. How often do I criticize myself? A lot. How often do I doubt my skills? Often. How often do I make myself smaller so that other people will be more comfortable? Well, it's hard to put all this gender fabulousness into a box, but I do sometimes. How often does my brain drown out the desires of my heart at the cost of my soul? How often does the role I have in any given moment demand too much? But like Evan, I let others make assumptions about who I am and what I believe, or let them trounce my boundaries, my need for solitude and rest sacrificed in service to the many urgencies of the day. Parker Palmer writes, solitude is essential to personal integration. There are places in the landscapes of our lives where no one can accompany us. As an introvert and an empath, I need those landscapes to recover from what I call peopling and quieting my mind of its chatter and its worries so that I can listen to the still small voice inside, or the guidance of ancestors, or the presence of the spirit of life, or sitting in the mystery, or hiking while listening to the earth, depending on what theological space I'm in that day. Lately, I've been finding Thich Nhat Hanh's breathing practice helpful in bringing me back into the present moment. How simple, and yet so very hard. Breathing in, I know I am breathing in. Breathing out, I know I am breathing out. Sometimes I might add other phrases like, breathing in, I embrace who I am called to be. Breathing out, I release judgment and fear. Palmer continues, because we are communal creatures who need each other's support, and because left to our own devices, we have an endless capacity for self-absorption and self-deception, community is equally essential to rejoining soul and role. As we breathe in and out, we can become more self-aware in any given moment. In this moment, I am standing in a pulpit, speaking in a circle of people whose well-being I care about. Who or what helps ground and center you? Who here wants to be part of building beloved community, even if we might sometimes struggle with what to call the love that holds us all? Who might have a little resistance to another member's expression of faith and would like to feel less judgmental about that authentic expression? And as named in our story for all ages earlier, Stella Luna, can we be in community if you sleep at night or during the day? If you can fly in the dark or need the light to guide you? If you prefer bugs or fruit? How might we help one another be self-aware but not self-absorbed? To be honest with ourselves and vulnerable with one another about our worries, our struggles, our beliefs, our questions. I think that's only really possible when we become acquainted with our soul, our essence, who we are, and get curious. Who am I? Who am I really? What do I value? Whom do I trust? What do I need? What are my hopes? What do I need to learn to let love grow? And when the you know what hits the fan, who am I then? Because it's hitting the fan all around us. Learning these answers is important and essential for an undivided life. Now, some of us have done therapy or other forms of personal work and have a sense of these answers and have noticed how they change over our lifetime. And some of us have no idea who we are. Perhaps now as our bodies are aging and changing, or that a relationship has ended, or kids are launched, or a job changed, or we made a mistake and we don't know how to find our way back. Palmer describes in the rest of the book the benefits of circles of trust, the qualities needed, the invitation issued to shift from judgment to curiosity, from cynicism to vulnerability, from fear to trust, from a divided life to one that is made more whole in the presence of others. And it is my sincere hope to create such experiences with you, with one another here, where folks in this pulpit or in a meeting or check-ins and every part of congregational life, that we keep the congregation's mission at the center while creating opportunities for growing self-awareness and increasing our ability to also be aware of others in the circle and beyond, and what they're experiencing, what they're needing. It is my hope that we in this circle can move towards more trust, more kindness. It's pretty easy to just go around being upset with one's inner state or the state of the world, complaining, criticizing, feeling justified in our righteous anger and our judgment of others. It's harder, though spiritually far more fulfilling, to look beneath that anger and find out what it's defending. And as we become more familiar with our own inner life, in going a bit deeper, we can invite ourselves into curiosity about what others might be experiencing, with less assumptions about what they are experiencing, less judgment about what they're doing. The word religion, as many of you know, comes from the Latin word religio, to bind together. This Unitarian Universalist religion, in this place where we choose to attend, choose to breathe together, choose to open our minds and hearts, and choose curiosity over judgment, assumptions, and fear, we bind ourselves with these good people in this circle and beyond. This is not always easy, of course. We are still human, after all. Yet it can be more transformational than anything we've imagined when we listen to our own soul and gently invite the souls of others forward. When we put down the armor. We heard so many examples of that this summer. The wisdom of so many people in this congregation sharing their hearts, their souls, their joys, their struggles. Did you learn anything? Were you moved or changed by any of those services? Have you written postcards to get out the vote, or read a book by an author from BIPOC communities and been changed or inspired? Have you signed up for a Wellspring, or worked on your art project, or started morning pages, or done a music lessons, or playing that harmonica and that piano, dear Porters? Have you been moved by poetry? Have you had a conversation across species? Have you looked at your neighborhood in a new way? Have you engaged in the labor of creating spiritual community? Have you had more positive thoughts about your body, about this community? If you haven't guessed or seen circuits this week, September's theme is invitation. Each of us is invited to become more self-aware. What does your heart need? And we're invited to become more aware of others in our circles, here and in our lives. What do other hearts need? When we do this work and keep practicing, we may find it harder to judge others, because we begin to see that we ourselves have within us the seeds of both good and evil, which can be very difficult to come to terms with, because most of us have been programmed to believe that we are good, or that we want to be good. But as the poet Walt Whitman once exclaimed, we contain multitudes. We want to believe we are good, and we are. And yet we do things that are unkind or inconsiderate or thoughtless sometimes. We want to be caring and wise, and we are. And sometimes we're closed-minded, or we lash out. And we can't change or heal those harder parts of ourselves if we refuse to admit that they are there. Thich Nhat Hanh has a beautiful, though painfully difficult poem that captures the essence of what I'm trying to give voice to. Now, this poem does contain some violent references. His life in Vietnam having been impacted by so much violence and the war. A few lines are rather brutal, and I pondered whether to speak these words aloud in the circle. And given the rise of evil forces that have always been present, but now are just seeing themselves as fine to demonstrate, whether it's white Christian nationalism, or fascist designs, or the idea of overthrowing our democracy, with the violence that rages on in the Middle East and so many other places around the world, I have chosen to share it with you without edit. And I can be available for pastoral support after the service, if needed. And if you want to block your ears, you can do that too. Really. This poem is called Call Me by My True Names. Don't say that I will depart tomorrow. Even today, I am still arriving. Look deeply. Every second I am arriving to be a bud on a spring branch, to be a tiny bird with still fragile wings learning to sing in my new nest, to be a caterpillar in the heart of a flower, to be a jewel hiding itself in a stone. I still arrive in order to laugh and to cry, to fear and to hope. The rhythm of my heart is the birth and death of all that is alive. I am a mayfly metamorphosing on the surface of the river. And I am the bird that swoops down to swallow the mayfly. I am a frog swimming happily in the clear water of a pond. And I am the grass snake that silently feeds itself on the frog. I am the child in Uganda, all skin and bones, my legs as thin as bamboo sticks. And I am the arms merchant selling deadly weapons to Uganda. I am the 12-year-old girl refugee on a small boat who throws herself into the ocean after being raped by a sea pirate. And I am also the pirate, my heart not yet capable of seeing and loving. I am a member of the Politburo with plenty of power in my hands, and I am the man who has to pay his debt of blood to my people dying slowly in a forced labor camp. My joy is like spring, so warm it makes flowers bloom all over the earth. My pain is like a river of tears, so vast it fills 4 oceans. Please call me by my true names, so I can hear all my cries and laughter at once, so that I can see that my joy and pain are one. Please call me by my true names, so I can wake up and the door of my heart could be left open. The door of compassion. We are invited into compassion and into courage again and again when we dare to show up for ourselves and one another, when we show up for this religious community and recognize that we are all works in progress, that we can be so different and feel so much alike, and we can feel so different and be so much alike. We can covenant to invite one another into right relationship. We can get curious about those differences and similarities rather than waiting to pounce in judgment. We can pay attention to what is going on inside us and be curious about why and whether or not it's serving us, or maybe it's something that needs to be healed or released so the door of our hearts can be opened. Awakening to what is really going on inside us, gently coaxing ourselves and one another to express the person we truly are inside and outside, and being trustworthy of the gift of that vulnerability, acknowledging for better and for worse that sometimes we contain multitudes, some of which need healing, some parts need to grow, and some are beautiful just as we are. All of it, all at the same time. in this season of invitation, may we invite ourselves to open the doors and dwell in the land of compassion. May it be so. Namaste. Amen. And blessed be.